Hi, this is YouTube Librarian Mike J. Dubensky, and I'm recording from using a PlayStation 5 and a PlayStation HD camera. I'm not sure if I'm going to show up in the recording, but it looks like the audio track is getting captured. And I was going to read a little bit from Jacques Derrida's Thinking Out of Sight, Writings on the Arts of the Visible, for what I call the Jacques Derrida effect. The Jacques Derrida effect is the same as the William Shakespeare effect. High school students show up to study Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet. They don't understand Shakespeare. But when they're grown-ups, they don't understand why there was a problem understanding Shakespeare and recommend him highly. In fact, a major William Shakespeare scholar passed away a few years ago, and he's responsible for an incredible book, The Complete Works of Shakespeare. He provided the Americanized English word for William Shakespeare's obscure phrases, some of them distinctive to when he was alive and are no longer being used. We call that archaic meaning. He came and spoke at my graduate school university. And he was quite brilliant, by the way. So the Jacques Derrida is similar to the William Shakespeare effect. The Jacques Derrida effect is when you don't understand Jacques Derrida while in college, but you do as a college graduate. So this is, it does have thinking out of sight. What does that mean? Thinking out of sight. That's the title. Writings on the Arts of the Visible. And why is that important? First, I will tell you that Jacques Derrida may in fact have inspired the naming of Xbox, because he called the X factor as that which causes excitability. The X factor is excitability. The potential to be excited. He didn't make a explicit reference to Xbox, the video game console, but he may have used the word the letter X to mean excitability. Now, what does that mean? Thinking out of sight. Writings on the Arts of the Visible. So the reason why it's slightly irrelevant within a video game is because visual literacy is a really big idea. The idea of visual literacy is that instead of textual literacy, in which you try to understand the text, visual literacy is when you ask the question, what is the objective or personal significance of this scene? Objective, meaning true for everyone, and especially as it pertains to the image. Subjective, could there be some personal significance here that shouldn't be there necessarily? Or what does it mean to me, and what does it mean in general? What is the objective significance? If you were to look at it from a formal perspective, the story is about, the image is, what could it mean for everyone? What could it mean? What are you looking at? What are the formal qualities? The objective versus personal. Personal is more controversial. You're suggesting that there could be a personal message, but it could mean what it means to me versus what it means for everyone. What is the objective and personal significance of the image, not of the text, necessarily? visual literacy. And so we have Jacques Derrida speaking, writing about thinking out of sight, slightly ambiguous title, Writings on the Arts of the Visible. Let's take a look at one conversation point. PB, who stands for Peter Brunette, raised the question, the effect of presence that always strikes me, and this is perhaps totally idiosyncratic, is the presence of the artist's body. For example, in the Impasto in Van Gogh, when I see a Van Gogh, I immediately feel his brush somehow in a way that I don't with writing. In any trait, any brushstroke, there is a certain presence of the artist, no? And Jacques Derrida says, I understand what you mean and share your feelings completely. As a matter of fact, for me, the body is not absent when I read Plato or Descartes. Having said that, clearly it is there in a different manner. Whereas when we look at a painting by Van Gogh, the manner in which the work is, I would say, haunted by the body of Van Gogh is irrefutable. And I think that this reference to what you call the body makes up part of the work and the experience of the work. But obviously, I wouldn't translate that as you have just done. I would say that there is an undeniable provocation we can identify in what is painted and signed Van Gogh, and that it is all the more violent and undeniable by virtue of not being present. That is to say that the very body of Van Gogh that haunts his paintings is all the more violently implicated and involved in the act of painting to the extent that he was not present during the act, for the body itself is ruptured, or let's say riven by non-presence, by the impossibility of identifying with itself, of being simply Van Gogh. So what I would call the body, I'm happy to talk about the body from that point. It isn't a presence. The body is, how should I say, an experience of the most unstable, voyageur sense of the term. It is an experience of frames, of dehiscence, of dislocations. So I see a dislocated Van Gogh, one who is dislocated in the process of performing something. I relate to Van Gogh in terms of his signature. I don't mean signature in the sense of attaching his name, but in the sense that he signs while painting. And my relation to or experience of the signature of Van Gogh is all the more violent, both for him and for me, because it also involves my own body. I suppose that when you speak of the body, you are speaking also of your own, and all the more ineluctable, undeniable, and passionate. I'm given over to the body of Van Gogh as he was given over to the experience, even more so because those bodies are not presence. Presence would mean death. If presence were possible in the full sense of a being that is there where it is, that gathers, say, ensemble, there where it is, if that were possible, there would be neither Van Gogh, nor the work of Van Gogh, nor the experience we can have of the work of Van Gogh. If all these experiences, works, or signatures are possible, it is to the extent that presence hasn't succeeded in being there, and in assembling there, or if you wish, that there-ness, that being there, only exists on the basis of this work of traces that dislocates itself. So that's the beginning of the response.